It was just another routine day at the small pharmacy in the heart of downtown. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as the clock on the wall ticked away slowly. Inside, there was the usual mix of customers, some waiting in line, others lost in the aisles, looking for the right medication. Among them was Dorothy Henderson, a 72-year-old retired nurse with a history of health problems. She wasn't in any rush, just picking up her prescription, a simple task that should have taken no more than a few minutes. But as she reached the counter to pay, she noticed a man standing just outside the door. His uniform caught her eye, the dark blue of the police department. Dorothy didn't think much of it at first. She'd seen officers around town before, some of them friendly, others more distant. This one, however, was different. His gaze lingered on her as she stepped toward the counter. She didn't think much of it. People stared sometimes, but Dorothy knew how to ignore it. But today, his stare was heavier, almost judging. Before Dorothy could hand over her payment, the officer approached her, blocking her path. His eyes were cold, his posture rigid, and he had a scowl plastered across his face. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice carrying a tone that didn't belong in a public place. It wasn't polite, it wasn't even professional. "You're going to have to come with me." Dorothy's heart skipped a beat. She glanced around, confused, unsure if he was talking to her. "I'm sorry, officer," she said slowly, looking up at him with a mix of caution and disbelief. "What do you mean, come with you? I'm just here to pick up my medication." "Yeah, I know. You've been seen stealing from the store before, and I'm not letting that slide." The accusation hung in the air like an insult. Dorothy stood, still, processing the words. Her mouth opened, then closed. She knew she hadn't stolen anything. She had always paid for her prescriptions without a problem. And now this officer, this stranger, was accusing her of something she had never done. "I'm sorry, but that's not true," Dorothy said, her voice shaky but steady. "I haven't stolen anything. I've been coming here for years." The officer didn't listen. Instead, he moved toward her, blocking her from walking any further. His hand gripped her arm, firm but rough. "You're not going anywhere until I say so," he snapped, his voice growing louder. "You're coming down to the station. Please, let me go," Dorothy said, now starting to panic. Her heart raced, and she could feel a lump in her throat. She was no criminal, just a woman who had lived her life quietly and tried to stay out of trouble. Yet here she was, being treated like a criminal for simply existing in a space she had frequented for years. Dorothy took a breath and straightened her back. The officer's grip on her arm tightened, but she wasn't going to back down. She knew something had to be wrong, that this couldn't be happening for no reason. "Look, I'm not causing trouble," she said again, her voice quiet but firm, her hand shaking. "I'll just leave. I won't cause any trouble." But the officer wasn't listening. He was too caught up in his own sense of authority. He was determined to make her pay for something she hadn't done. "What's her name?" the officer barked, his grip on her arm never wavering. "Dorothy Henderson," she said. "You can check the pharmacy records if you want. I haven't stolen anything." But the officer wasn't interested in facts or evidence. All he saw was an older black woman, and to him, that was enough to make her guilty. He didn't know the truth, but in his mind, it didn't matter. He could take her down, make an example of her, and no one would question it. No one would stop him. It wasn't until a voice interrupted them that the situation started to change. A woman from the pharmacy, a longtime employee who knew Dorothy well, approached them. She had seen everything from the counter, and now, stepping forward, she spoke up with authority. "Excuse me, officer," she said, standing tall and calm. "You can't just accuse people like this. Dorothy's been coming here for years. There's no record of her stealing anything." The officer glanced at her, his scowl deepening. But for the first time, he hesitated. It was a moment of doubt, though he wouldn't admit it. This wasn't going the way he thought it would. The woman behind the counter wasn't backing down, and neither was Dorothy. Still, the officer wasn't ready to let go of his power. Even when the truth was starting to surface, he stepped closer, trying to intimidate them both with his stance. "Maybe you should keep quiet, sweetheart," he growled, directing his attention back to the employee. "This doesn't concern you." But Dorothy, for the first time, spoke out with a clarity that shocked the officer. Her voice was firm, her back straight, and the defiance in her words sent a chill down his spine. "Excuse me. Ma'am, you're under arrest for stealing," the officer barked, his grip tightening around Dorothy Henderson's arm. The 72-year-old woman stood frozen, her heart pounding. She had done nothing wrong, yet here she was, accused by a man with a badge, ready to drag her away for a crime she didn't commit. But Dorothy wasn't just any elderly woman. She had a past, a history with the law that the officer didn't know, a hidden truth that would bring his entire career crashing down in a single sentence. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. You can't just do this. You've got no reason to treat me like this. Dorothy paused, locking eyes with him. "And you should know who I am before you decide to make your accusations." The officer blinked, his jaw tightening. Dorothy's eyes didn't waver. "I used to work with the police," she said calmly, watching the officer's face change as her words sank in. "I was a nurse. I worked in the ER. handling more cases than you can imagine. I know the law, and I know when it's being abused." The officer's grip loosened for a moment. He wasn't sure what to make of her statement. His confidence cracked. "You, ... You were a nurse?" he asked, his voice low now, filled with confusion. He wasn't prepared for this. Not by a long shot. "Wasn't just any nurse," she said, her voice stronger now, her gaze unwavering. "I was with the department for 25 years. You don't get to do this to me." The officer took a step back, his face reddening. For a moment it felt like the entire room was holding its breath. Dorothy Henderson wasn't the powerless old woman he thought she was. She had a history, a presence, and a knowledge of the system that made the officer realize he had made a grave mistake. The other customers in the pharmacy had been watching, and now their murmurs grew louder. The officer took one more glance at Dorothy, his face a mixture of confusion, anger, and regret. It was clear to everyone watching that he had underestimated her, and now he was on the edge of losing everything. "I don't want to cause trouble," the officer muttered, stepping back, finally letting go of her arm. Just don't make this worse." Dorothy, now fully in control of the situation, nodded once. "It's already worse," she said quietly. It wasn't long before a police supervisor arrived at the scene, summoned by the pharmacy employee's call. He immediately took control, questioning the officer's actions. As the truth came to light, the officer's behavior was scrutinized, and the evidence, Dorothy's history, the employee's testimony, and the lack of any proof led to the officer's immediate suspension. But the consequences for this officer didn't end there. As the case went to internal affairs and the media caught wind of it, the officer's career unraveled. The department had to address his behavior, and within weeks, he was fired. His badge was revoked, his career in shambles, and he faced public disgrace. Dorothy Henderson, on the other hand, walked out of the pharmacy a hero. She was not just a victim in this story. She was a survivor, a woman who had stood her ground, a woman who had faced injustice head-on, and came out stronger on the other side. In the end, it was her strength, her quiet but unshakable confidence, that had won the day. As Dorothy left the police station after the hearing, she smiled to herself. Justice might take time, but it always finds a way. The officer's actions were a stain on the badge he had worn, but they would be remembered as a lesson. Abuse of power would never go unchecked. Dorothy had proven that, and she would always remember the power of one simple sentence, the one that had ended his career. "You don't get to do this to me." In the end, Dorothy Henderson's quiet strength and courage became a reminder to everyone. Abuse of power doesn't go unpunished. The officer's career was destroyed, and Dorothy walked away stronger than ever, proving that justice, no matter how long it takes, always prevails. Thank you for watching Hidden Truth Stories. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more gripping stories of injustice, truth, and redemption. Until next time, stay strong, stay aware, and never back down when it comes to doing what's right.